Chiamaka,
Yes, Mama?
have you finished preparing Emeka's breakfast?
Yes, Mama. It's almost ready.
Almost.
I'll serve him now.
Good morning, Mama.
Good morning, my son.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Emeka, you should leave early today. Chiamaka. 10 years, Chiamaka.
Mama?
10 years of marriage and still no child. Have you gone to see the native doctor in Suka?
No, Mama.
Why?
I don't have the money right now. A woman who cannot give her husband a child should find the money from somewhere. Mama, I've tried. Trying is not enough. You haven't forgotten about Nsuka? No, Mama. Then when are you going? I'll go soon. Soon is not a day. I said I'll go. The ancestors won't wait forever. Mama, I've done everything you've asked me to do. Then do one more thing. What? Find a stronger solution.
Chiamaka! Adaize, how are you? The same, nothing has changed. Your mother-in-law? Who else? Still talking about children every day. You know you don't deserve this. What? In Lagos 2 weeks ago. What did you want to tell me? I saw Emeka in Lagos 2 weeks ago. Lagos? At a wedding reception in Ikeja. That can't be him. But keep your eyes open. Emeka?
Yes?
You're late.
The business meeting ran longer than expected.
Where was the meeting?
Onitsha.
Onitsha. Are you sure everything is fine?
Nothing. I'm tired, Chiamaka.
Chiamaka married Emeka in Enugu in 1999. 10 years later, she had no children, and her husband blamed her for it. His family treated her like a curse in the house. She didn't know Emeka had another woman in Lagos, another set of children, another life he kept 10 years. This is her story. Chiamaka wakes before dawn, same as every morning for the years. She sweeps the compound, prepares breakfast before Emeka wakes. Her mother-in-law, Mama Nkiru, sits on the veranda already, watching her with the same cold expression she looks at her with since the wedding day. Emeka comes out, eats his breakfast and leaves for his transport business in town. As Chiamaka clears the plates, Nkiru asks if Chiamaka has gone to see the native doctor in Saka yet, the one Nkiru recommended 3 months ago. Chiamaka says she hasn't had the money. Nkiru tells her a woman who cannot give her husband a child should find the money from somewhere, anywhere, before her husband finds a woman who can. Later that week, Nkiru brings up the native doctor again, this time insisting Chiamaka travel to Zaka before the next planting season, warning that the ancestors won't wait forever for a solution. Chiamaka reminds her she already visited 3 different herbalists over the years, drank every concoction handed to her, sat through every prayer session Nkiru arranged at the White Garment Church without a single result. Nkiru says maybe the problem needs a stronger hand, someone from her own village who dealt with a similar case for her cousin's wife years ago. Chiamaka agrees only to end the conversation, not because she believes it will change anything. At the market, women whisper when Chiamaka passes. She's used to it after 10 years, the sideways looks, the comments about barren wives, the pity disguised as concern. Her friend Adiz runs a stall nearby, the only person in the market who still greets her warmly. Adiz asks how things are at home. Chiamaka says the same as. Adiz mentions she saw Emeka in Lagos 2 weeks ago, at a wedding reception in Ikeja, though Emeka told Chiamaka he was in Onitsha for business that same weekend. Chiamaka brushes it off, assumes Adiz mistook someone else for him. Adiz isn't so sure but didn't push it, only tells Chiamaka to keep her eyes open, that men who travel as much as Emeka does don't always travel for the reasons they claim. That night, Emeka comes home late, smelling of a different perfume. She asks where he's been. He says a business meeting ran long. She didn't argue. Arguing has never changed anything in the past 10 years, only made the house colder for days afterward. She serves his food and goes to bed. She lies awake long after he starts snoring, replaying every absence over the past years, trips to Lagos that stretched longer. He sneaks to make phone calls outside the gate so she couldn't hear. She found a SIM card in his trouser pocket and bought, never asked about it because it would just cause unnecessary chaos. Nkiru finds her the next morning washing clothes, tells her a woman came by asking for Emeka while he was out. She was well dressed, driving a car nicer than anything in the family. Nkiru says she sent the woman away, told her Emeka wasn't available, but the visit unsettles her enough to mention it. Chiamaka asks who the woman was. Nkiru says she doesn't know, and there seems to be concern in her voice. She tells Chiamaka the woman seems to be off. Chiamaka's younger sister, Ifiinwa, calls from Lagos where she works as a nurse. During the call, Ifinwa mentions that she saw a man who looked exactly like Emeka picking up children from a school in Surale, twice, on 2 separate visits to a friend's house nearby. Chiamaka asks what the children looked like. Ifinwa describes a boy around 6 and a girl around 3. Chiamaka didn't sleep that night. She goes through Emeka's old phone, the one he keeps locked in a drawer. She finds a number saved as Office Lagos, a boy blowing out birthday candles, a girl in a school uniform, a woman standing beside him at what looks like a housewarming, all of them smiling like a family. She calls the number the next morning while he's out. A woman answers, warmly, and says she's been trying to reach him about their son's school fees. Chiamaka asks the woman her name. The woman hesitates, then says Blessing. Chiamaka asks how long she's known Emeka. Blessing says 7 years, since they married in a small ceremony in Lagos, that they have 2 children together, Kelechi and Edeora. She adds, proudly, that Emeka built the Surale house for her 5 years ago. Chiamaka goes quiet on the line. Blessing asks who's speaking. Chiamaka tells her, Emeka's wife, married for 10 years, in Enugu. The call goes silent for a long time before Blessing hangs up. Chiamaka didn't say a word to anyone yet. She packs a small bag, takes a bus to Lagos the next morning, finds the address Blessing talked about in their conversation. The house is in a quiet Surale estate, gated, well kept, nicer than anything Emeka ever built for Chiamaka in Enugu. She stands outside for some minutes before a boy comes out, carrying a school bag on his back, looking exactly like her husband. Blessing comes to the gate, her instincts told her it was Chiamaka. The 2 women stand facing each other, neither speaking at first. Blessing finally invites her inside. She tells Chiamaka everything, how she met Emeka at a transport conference in Lagos 7 years ago, how he told her he was widowed, no children, free to marry again. She shows Chiamaka their marriage certificate, a traditional wedding conducted in her hometown in Delta State, witnessed by Emeka's own cousin from Enugu. Chiamaka asks if Blessing knew about her. Blessing swears she didn't, not until the phone call. She says Emeka told her Chiamaka died years before they met. Emeka arrives at his Lagos home that evening, unaware Chiamaka is inside. He walks in mid-sentence about a delayed shipment and stops cold at the sight of his 2 wives sitting across from each other at the same table. Blessing asks him if it's true. Emeka doesn't answer right away, which is answer enough. Chiamaka finally says, despite 10 years of swallowed anger surfacing all at once. She asks him how he could let her be blamed, mocked, abused by his own mother for 10 years for not giving him children, while he built an entire family in Lagos with children that Emeka couldn't answer. Then she says for 8 years, that she's always known the problem was his, not hers, ever since the hospital screening. She tells him, and Blessing, about the doctor's results, that showed Emeka is the one with fertility issues. Emeka, shocked, keep insisting Chiamaka is lying, that no doctor ever told him anything like that she's inventing the story now to hurt him in front of Blessing. Chiamaka tells him to prove it then, to walk into any clinic and take the test again if he's so certain. Emeka says he will, that he'll settle this himself and put an end to the accusation once and for all. Blessing goes quiet after the confrontation. Hearing Chiamaka's story about the hospital, it made her worried about a secret she hid for years. During her early time in the marriage, she engaged in a brief relationship with a colleague. Emeka insists there's nothing to question, that Kelechi and Edeora are obviously his. Blessing doesn't argue the point. He arranges for a fertility and paternity test the same week Emeka books his own appointment with Dr. Choku. Chiamaka returns to Enugu but doesn't go back to the family compound. She stays with Adiz instead, finally telling her everything. Adiz isn't surprised about Emeka's cruelty, only about the scale of the lie. She tells Chiamaka she deserves better than 10 years of being blamed for a marriage that was never right. Mom Nkiru hears the news through the extended family grapevine before Chiamaka says a word to her directly. When Nkiru finally confronts her, expecting to scold her for embarrassing the family, Chiamaka doesn't flinch. She tells Nkiru every year of contempt she suffered in that house was built on a lie. The paternity results come back 10 days later. Neither Kelechi nor Edeora shares a biological match with Emeka. Blessing doesn't react with shock, only a long exhale, the relief of finally knowing outweighing the guilt of having wondered for years. Emeka demands an explanation. She admits it, the colleague from her old workplace, the relationship she ended once she believed things with Emeka were stable, never imagining it would matter this many years later, and never certain about it herself. Emeka's world collapses in the space of one conversation. The wife he built a second life around, unfaithful without his knowledge, and children he raised are not his. Emeka finally sits for the fertility test he swore he'd never need, walking into Dr. Ifeomachukwu's clinic still insisting Chiamaka invented the entire story to embarrass him. He tells the receptionist he wants the result fast. He was very confident they'll prove his wife is a liar. Dr. Chukwu delivers the results weeks later. Emeka has a severe fertility condition, present likely since before his marriage to Chiamaka, one that would have made conception with her practically impossible from the very beginning. She adds that the file shows a screening under his name from years earlier with the same finding, a record he never returned to check. Chiamaka sits across from him in the waiting room when the result was delivered, though she wasn't required to come. She came anyway, needing to watch him finally hear out loud what she'd been forced to carry alone in silence. Emeka doesn't look at her. He stares at the floor, unable to argue. News travels fast through Enugu. Mom Nkiru, confronted with medical proof after years of blaming Chiamaka publicly, she stops attending church functions for weeks, unable to face the same women she once led in gossip against her daughter-in-law. Chiamaka doesn't seek revenge. She simply stops answering Nkiru's calls, done explaining herself to a woman who never once considered she might be wrong. Emeka's older brother, Chukwudi, calls a family meeting as soon as the truth spreads, demanding to know how long Emeka hid a second marriage from everyone, including their own father before he died. Emeka admits it started as a business trip that turned into a relationship. He never intended to keep secret this long, that one lie simply required another until the two lives became impossible to separate without destroying both. Chukwudi tells him the family will not defend him publicly, that he built this mess alone and he'll answer for it alone. Chiamaka files for divorce through a lawyer in Enugu. Emeka didn't contest it. He became a shadow of himself, facing two failed families and a truth he spent a decade avoiding. Mom Nkiru, faced with the divorce filing and the community's growing awareness of the whole affair, sends a message through Ifeanwa asking Chiamaka to come home, insisting the family can find a way to fix things. Chiamaka didn't respond. Adis tells her she owes Nkiru nothing, not after 10 years of being made to feel like a failure in a marriage. Emeka, meanwhile, ends things with Blessing entirely, leaving her to raise Kelechi and Edoora. She moves back to Delta State with the children, closer to her own family, determined to give them stability. In Delta State, Blessing rebuilds her life, taking a supervisory role at a textile company through a cousin's connection. A year after the divorce, Chiamaka meets Obiora Nwachukwu, a widower and billionaire from her home village, introduced through Adis at a church harvest event. Obiora lost his first wife to illness 8 years earlier and raised his 2 grown children alone since. He is direct, nothing like the man she spent 10 years married to. They begin talking regularly. Obiora asks her whether she still wants children, aware of everything she's been through. Chiamaka tells him honestly, she doesn't know anymore. He tells her whatever happens, it changes nothing about how he sees her. They got married 18 months later, a small ceremony attended by Adis, Ifeanwa, and a handful of close family members who stood by Chiamaka through the divorce. News of the wedding reaches Enugu's wider community faster than either of them expects, and several of the same women who once whispered about her barrenness in the market now find reasons to greet her warmly whenever she visits. 11 months after the wedding, Chiamaka gives birth to a daughter, Chidiogo, at 30 years old. Word reaches Emeka that Chiamaka had a child. By then his transport business has shrunk to a fraction of what it once was, most of it lost in the divorce settlement and the rest mismanaged in the years he spent distracted by 2 collapsing households at once. He shows up at her new home uninvited one afternoon. He tells her he's sorry, that he never should have let his family treat her the way they did. She tells him she isn't angry anymore, that anger stopped being useful the day she held her daughter for the first time. She tells him the years he took from her can't be returned, but she isn't interested in punishing him for it either. Emeka asks about Blessing's children, whether Chiamaka thinks he should still try to stay in their lives despite the paternity result. Chiamaka tells him that's a decision between him and the 2 children themselves, not something she can answer for him. Emeka asks if there's any chance of reconciliation. Chiamaka tells him plainly there isn't, that she built a life he has no place in anymore, and that the kindest thing he can do now is let her keep it that way. Emeka leaves without pushing further. Chiamaka watches him go from the veranda, then turns back inside to where Obiora is waiting, dinner already on the table, their daughter reaching for her father's arms the moment she sat down. Adis visits Chiamaka a few weeks after. Adis tells her the whole town still talks about the story. Chiamaka didn't get those 10 years back. She built new ones instead, and this time,